The grand chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with strange lights. Thousands of glowing crystals floated above, casting soft colors that danced across the high arches of the hall. The chamber itself was not built for humans. Its size, its echo, its air filled with alien perfumes. It all seemed designed to remind newcomers that they were small. Captain Elias stood near the center, his boots clicking against the smooth floor. Around him sat the rulers of dozens of worlds. Some were covered in scales, others with feathers, some floating in gravity fields. Their eyes followed him with cold interest. To them, he was only a human, a representative of a young species that had barely begun to travel the stars. Still, Elias held his head high. He wore a simple uniform of Earth's space fleet, dark blue with silver lines across the chest. He had practiced his speech many times, knowing every word had to count. Earth needed recognition. Earth needed allies. At the far end of the chamber sat the alien queen. She was taller than any human, her form both graceful and powerful. Her skin shone faintly like polished stone, and her golden eyes glimmered with intelligence. A crown of silver branches rested on her brow. She did not just sit. She ruled the room by her very presence. When Elias looked at her, his chest tightened. This was the moment he had trained for. He had to prove that humans were more than just fragile beings from a small planet. The herald's voice rang out. "The envoy from Earth, Captain Elias." The sound echoed and then silence. Every ruler watched him. The queen leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes fixed on the human. Elias took a breath and began. "Honored Council, my name is Elias. I come from Earth, a world new to the stars but not new to struggle. We have faced storms, wars, and hardships. And yet, we endure. We seek not conquest, but friendship. We come not to bow, but to stand with others." His voice was steady. He felt confidence rising with each word. He thought of his people back home, watching through transmissions. His speech had to carry their hopes. The council members murmured among themselves. Some looked unimpressed, others smirked. To them, humans were still weak. Elias pressed on. "We may be small compared to empires that span galaxies, but we have one strength that no one can take from us. We stand together. Through unity, we grow strong. Through loyalty, we rise. Through trust, we give our hearts." He had planned the line as a poetic ending, something simple yet strong. On Earth it would sound noble. But the moment the words left his mouth, the chamber froze. The queen's eyes widened slightly. Her lips curved into a slow smile. The alien lords began to whisper, their voices sharp with shock. Some turned their heads, others gasped softly. Elias blinked, confused. He had expected polite silence, maybe even mocking laughter. But the reaction was different. Something was wrong. The queen rose from her throne. The movement was slow, graceful, filled with power. She descended the steps, her eyes never leaving his. Each step echoed through the chamber until she stood only a short distance away. She tilted her head and spoke in a voice like clear bells. "Human, do you know the meaning of your words?" Elias frowned. "I meant only to speak of unity and loyalty, Your Majesty." Her smile grew. "In my people's tongue, the words you have spoken carry another meaning. They are the words of a bond, spoken only between those who seek to join lives. In your speech, you have offered me what we call the vow of union." The hall erupted with sound. Some rulers shouted in disbelief. Others laughed cruelly. A few simply stared. Elias froze. His mouth opened, then closed. He tried to speak, but no words came. Did she mean? No, it could not be. The queen raised her hand, and the noise stopped. Her golden eyes sparkled with amusement. "So tell me, Captain Elias of Earth, was that a marriage proposal?" The words struck him like a shock. His heart raced. His mind screamed that it was impossible. He had only meant loyalty, unity, trust. But now, the most powerful ruler in the chamber was looking at him with a smile that made the entire galaxy hold its breath. Elias began, but the queen raised her hand again. Her smile deepened. It does not matter, for I accept. The chamber exploded with noise. Shouts, protests, laughter, and cries filled the air. Some rulers pounded their tables. Others stood in fury. The herald nearly dropped his staff. Elias stood frozen, his face pale. He wanted to explain, to deny, to say it was all a mistake. But the queen's voice rose above the chaos. Let it be known, she declared, her voice ringing through the chamber, that this human, Captain Elias, has spoken the words of union. Before all gathered here, I, Queen Serenia of the Crystal Throne, accept his vow. The chamber fell silent again. Every alien eye turned to Elias. He could feel the weight of galaxies pressing down on him. Elias's thoughts raced. If he denied it now, would it insult her? Would it insult her people? Would Earth suffer? He had wanted recognition for humanity, but not like this. The queen leaned closer, her golden eyes gleaming with a strange light. Do not look so troubled, Captain. You have given me a gift that none of these lords dared to offer. You have spoken with courage. Her words were soft, but her tone carried power. Around them, whispers spread. Some nobles muttered about scandal, others about opportunity. Elias swallowed hard. His hands trembled slightly, but he clenched them to his sides. He could not show weakness now. He bowed his head. If my words have meaning in your people's ways, then I stand by them with respect. But please understand that my heart was only to honor Earth. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a clear, ringing laugh that made the chamber tremble. Oh, human, you may yet prove more interesting than all the warriors and princes who crowd this hall. She turned and returned to her throne, leaving Elias standing in the center of the chamber, his world spinning. The council session continued, but nothing was the same. Everywhere Elias looked, he saw eyes fixed on him. Some were filled with amusement, some with anger, some with curiosity. And above them all, the queen sat smiling, as if she had just set the galaxy on a new path. Elias could not shake the thought that echoed in his mind. Wait, was that really a marriage proposal? He sat in the small chamber given to him, staring at the alien stars outside the crystal window. His hands rested on his knees, his thoughts running in circles. Everywhere in the palace, whispers carried his name. He had not meant it, but somehow, before the eyes of the galaxy, he had become the man who proposed to the alien queen. He closed his eyes, remembering her words. I accept. The way she had smiled, the way her golden eyes had locked on him, it replayed in his head again and again. He whispered to himself, it was just a speech, just words of loyalty. How did it turn into this? But the galaxy did not care about his intent. They only cared about the queen's answer. The next morning, 2 guards came for him. They were tall, armored figures with silver crests upon their helmets. Without speaking, they led him through shining corridors of crystal and metal. The palace seemed alive, glowing softly with strange energy. Everywhere they passed, alien servants and nobles turned their heads, whispering as Elias walked by. Finally, the guards opened 2 great doors, leading into the queen's council chamber. Inside sat Queen Serenia, her golden eyes calm, her crown glimmering. Around her were alien lords and advisors, creatures with horns, wings, glowing skin, or scaled faces. Their voices hushed as Elias entered. The herald's voice announced, Captain Elias of Earth. Elias stepped forward, bowing his head respectfully. Your Majesty. The queen's lips curved into that same knowing smile. Captain Elias, the human who spoke vows he did not know. Soft laughter rippled across the council. Elias's face grew warm, but he stood tall. One of the alien lords, a tall warrior with 4 arms and bronze armor, leaned forward. His voice was sharp. This is a disgrace. A weak human dares to claim union with our queen? It insults the honor of our empire. Another lord hissed, his scaled skin shifting colors. Perhaps the human seeks to bind himself to our throne to gain power. Clever words, but dangerous. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some sounded mocking, others angry. The queen lifted her hand and silence fell. Enough. You speak as if I were a child fooled by tricks. I know what I accepted. And I saw courage in him that I do not see in many of you. Her golden eyes turned back to Elias. But tell me, Captain, what do you say? Was it your wish to bind yourself to me? Elias felt every gaze pierce him. His mouth felt dry. He wanted to explain the truth, that it was a mistake, that he only meant unity in the human way. But he also knew that if he embarrassed the Queen here before her council, Earth could suffer. He chose his words carefully. Your Majesty, my words were spoken from my heart as a representative of Earth. I wish to honor you and show that humans value loyalty and trust. If they carried a deeper meaning in your culture, then I can only bow to that meaning with respect. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she laughed softly. A careful answer. Very human. Some lords frowned, others exchanged glances. The four-armed warrior slammed one hand on the table. Careful words will not make him worthy. Let him be tested. If he fails, let his vow be broken and Earth forgotten. The Queen raised a brow. Tested? The warrior's eyes glowed fiercely. Yes, let him face the trials of union. If he survives, perhaps he has the strength to stand beside you. If not, then let all know this was only a foolish mistake. A murmur of approval rose among several lords. They wanted to see the human fail. Elias's stomach tightened. He whispered, trials. The Queen looked at him with amusement, but also with a strange softness in her gaze. The trials of union are ancient. They prove if a suitor is worthy of the throne. Few succeed. Many have fallen. Elias swallowed. His heart pounded. He was no warrior of their kind. He was a diplomat, a captain, a man of words. But he could not back away now. Not before the Queen. Not before the Council. Not with Earth's reputation at stake. He straightened his shoulders. If trials are the way of your people, then I will face them. The chamber erupted with noise again. Some laughed in disbelief. Others shouted in excitement. The four-armed warrior sneered, clearly pleased. The Queen raised her hand, silencing them. Her golden eyes shone like fire. So be it. The human will face the trials of union. Let the council witness his courage or his fall. Later, Elias was escorted back to his chamber. His steps felt heavy. The guards said nothing, but their silence seemed filled with judgment. When the door closed, Elias dropped into his chair, covering his face with his hands. What have I done? How can I survive this? He thought of Earth. His people had sent him to win respect, to open doors, not to step into deadly trials. Yet here he was, bound by words, by honor, by misunderstanding. But then another thought came. If he refused, Earth would look weak. If he failed, Earth would be mocked. If he succeeded, maybe, just maybe, humans would earn a place among the stars. He clenched his fists. Then I'll succeed, no matter what they throw at me. The next day, the Queen summoned him privately. Her throne room was empty of lords, only guarded by silent sentinels. She sat gracefully, her crown glimmering in the pale light. When Elias entered, she studied him in silence for a moment. Then she spoke. You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Elias bowed slightly. Perhaps both, your Majesty. She laughed softly. Do you know why the lords pressed for the trials? It is because they fear you. Not for your strength, but for what you represent. A new world rising, a new people daring to speak boldly. Elias met her gaze. And you, your Majesty? Do you fear me? Her smile faded into something more thoughtful. I do not fear, but I wonder. Perhaps your species has something different, something even my people have lost. Her golden eyes held his for a long time. Then she leaned back. The trials will begin soon. They will test your body, your mind, and your spirit. If you fall alone. If you rise, then you may find that your proposal carries more weight than you think. Elias's heart pounded. He bowed deeply. Then I will rise. The Queen's lips curved again. We shall see, Captain. We shall see. That night, as Elias prepared, he thought of his people back home. He thought of Earth's oceans, its skies, its simple beauty. He thought of how fragile his world was compared to the vast empires of space. And yet he also thought of humanity's strength, its ability to endure, to adapt, to survive the impossible. The trials might be meant to crush him, but he was human. And humans had a way of turning weakness into strength. Elias looked out the window once more at the alien stars. His voice was quiet but firm. For Earth, for all of us, I won't fail. Captain Elias was led by armored guards through towering gates into the hall of testing. The hall was unlike anything he had ever seen, half palace, half arena. The floor was carved from glowing crystal, and the ceiling opened to the alien sky where two suns burned with pale fire. Crowds filled the stands that circled the arena. Alien nobles, warriors, and even common citizens had gathered to watch the strange human who had dared to propose to their queen. Their voices filled the air with whispers and laughter. Some shouted insults. Others placed bets. Few believed he would survive. Elias walked with steady steps, but inside his stomach twisted. His hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. He reminded himself over and over, I cannot fail. Not for myself, not for Earth. At the far end of the arena, on a raised throne, sat Queen Serenia. She wore a flowing robe of silver, her crown gleaming in the sunlight. Her golden eyes followed Elias as he stepped into the center of the arena. When their gazes met, she gave the faintest smile, calm, mysterious, unreadable. A voice rang out across the hall, deep and echoing. It was the four-armed warrior lord, the one who had demanded the trials. His name was Lord Varrock, and his booming tone carried authority. By ancient law, the suitor of the throne shall face the trials of union. 3 tests will judge his body, his mind, and his spirit. Let the human prove himself, or fall. The crowd roared with approval. The first trial. The beast of stone. The floor of the arena shifted, splitting apart with a grinding sound. From the darkness below, a massive shape rose. It was a creature unlike anything Elias had seen. A beast made of living stone, its body covered in jagged crystal spikes. Its eyes glowed red, and each step shook the ground. The crowd cheered wildly. The beast let out a roar like breaking mountains. Elias's heart pounded. He had no weapons, only the simple training of a soldier. The beast was huge, unstoppable. If he ran, it would crush him. If he fought head-on, he would be destroyed. He forced himself to breathe. Think, Elias, don't fight its strength. Use its weight against it, the beast charged. Elias rolled aside, barely avoiding the crashing strike of its massive arm. The ground cracked where he had stood. Dust and shards flew. The crowd laughed, expecting him to be crushed at any moment. Again the beast charged. Elias noticed something. The crystal spikes on its back glowed whenever it moved, pulsing brighter just before it struck. Perhaps they drew energy to fuel its attacks. Elias ran toward the broken floor where the beast had smashed the ground. Sharp crystals jutted upward. As the beast lunged again, Elias dodged at the last second, letting its arm crash into the spikes. The crystal shards pierced its glowing back, and the beast roared in pain. The crowd gasped. No one had expected the human to last this long, let alone hurt the beast. Elias didn't stop. He darted around the creature, making it strike the ground again and again until its own power damaged its body. Finally, with one last roar, the beast collapsed in a shower of sparks and dust. Silence fell over the arena. Then the crowd erupted into wild noise, shouts of surprise, disbelief, and even respect. Elias stood panting, sweat dripping from his brow, but he lifted his head high. He was still standing. From her throne, the queen's smile grew wider. The second trial. The puzzle of mirrors. Lord Varrock's voice echoed again. The human has passed the first trial, but strength is nothing without wisdom. Let the second trial begin. The arena floor shifted once more, and Elias found himself surrounded by tall walls of shining glass. They rose in twisting paths until he stood in a giant maze of mirrors. The crowd quieted. This trial was different, slower, more silent. A voice whispered through the air, mechanical and cold. Only truth shall guide you. A single path leads to the throne. Choose wrong and be lost. Elias stared at his reflection in the countless mirrors. His own face looked back at him 100 times. Each turn seemed to lead nowhere, each reflection confusing the next. He moved carefully, testing the walls. His footsteps echoed strangely, as if the maze itself was alive. Sometimes he thought he saw movement in the glass, shadows that were not his own. At one point, he turned a corner and came face to face with a reflection that was wrong. It showed him, but with dark eyes and a cruel smile. The reflection spoke, "You cannot win. You are weak. Turn back and save yourself." Elias's chest tightened. Was it an illusion meant to test his spirit? He clenched his fists. "I know who I am. I won't be fooled by shadows." He struck the false reflection, and the glass shattered, revealing a hidden passage. He pressed on, using not just logic but instinct. Whenever the mirrors tried to trick him with false images, his family weeping, Earth burning, the Queen turning her back, he reminded himself they were only lies. Finally, after what felt like hours, he stepped out of the maze and into the light. The crowd gasped again. Few had expected him to escape. Elias stood tall, his voice steady though his body trembled. I am human. We do not stop because of fear or lies. We walk forward. The Queen's golden eyes shone with quiet approval. The third trial, the choice of Heartlord. Varroc's tone grew darker. He has passed 2 trials, but the last will break him. Let us see his spirit. The arena shifted again. This time Elias found himself in a smaller circle with 2 paths ahead. On one path stood a vision of Earth, a shimmering image of his home, its oceans and skies shining in the light. On the other path stood the Queen herself, her golden eyes watching silently. A voice filled the air. One must be chosen. Save your world or stand with the Queen. You cannot have both. The crowd fell silent. This was the cruelest trial. Elias's chest tightened painfully. The vision of Earth pulled at his heart. His people, his family, his duty, all told him to choose his planet. But then he looked at the Queen. She represented not only herself, but the alliance, the bond between species, the chance for humans to prove they belonged among the stars. He whispered, "Why must I choose? Why must it be one or the other?" The voice repeated coldly, "Choose." Elias closed his eyes. He thought of his people, struggling but proud. He thought of the Queen, strong yet curious. And he thought of what it meant to be human. Humans did not accept impossible limits. They searched for a third path when only 2 were given. They found hope where none existed. Elias opened his eyes, lifted his head, and spoke clearly. "I choose both. I will fight for Earth, and I will stand with the Queen. That is the human way." The visions trembled, then shattered like broken glass. The arena filled with light. The crowd gasped in shock. Lord Varroc's eyes burned with fury. But the Queen rose to her feet, her voice strong and proud. "He has passed the trials, not by strength alone, not by cunning alone, but by the heart of a human who refuses to give up." The arena thundered with noise. Some shouted in anger, others in awe, but no one could deny it. The human had succeeded. Elias stood in the center, exhausted, trembling, but victorious. He had faced the trials of union and lived. The Queen's golden eyes met his. She smiled, not with mockery, but with true respect, and perhaps something more. The arena still echoed with the cheers and shouts of the crowd. Some voices were angry, some amazed, but none could deny what had happened. The human had passed the trials of union. Captain Elias stood in the center, sweat on his brow, dust clinging to his uniform. His body ached from every test, but he stood tall. He had endured. He had not broken. From her throne, Queen Serenia rose. Her robe shimmered like liquid silver as she lifted her hand, silencing the arena. Her golden eyes locked onto Elias. "Before all gathered," she declared, her voice ringing clear, "the human has faced the trials. He has endured the beast of stone, walked the maze of truth, and chosen with a heart that refuses defeat. He has earned the respect of this throne." The crowd erupted again, but now there were cheers mixed with the protests. Some shouted for his honor, others cried against it. Lord Varroc's forearms clenched in fury. His deep voice thundered, "This proves nothing. Tricks and luck are not worthiness. The human is weak. He cannot defend you, Your Majesty. He cannot defend himself." The Queen's gaze sharpened. "And yet he succeeded where others failed. Are you so blind, Varroc?" But Varroc was not finished. His voice dropped, dark and heavy. "Let us see if he can defend more than himself. Let him defend a world." The arena hushed. Elias's chest tightened. He could hear the venom in Varroc's tone. This was no longer just about trials. Something larger was coming. The Queen's golden eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Varroc spread his arms wide as if claiming the sky. "An old enemy rises. Beyond the stars, in the dark regions, the Vorkai stir again. Scouts speak of their ships moving toward the border. If they come, they will bring war. Let the human prove himself there. Let him lead his people and allies against the real storm." A ripple of shock spread through the council. The Vorkai, the name alone carried weight. They were an ancient species, older than most empires, known for destruction. They had vanished for centuries, but their return would mean chaos. The Queen's eyes softened, though only slightly. She looked at Elias. "You hear this? Do you understand the weight?" Elias's heart pounded. He thought of Earth, fragile compared to these great empires. He thought of humans who still struggled to build their first colonies among the stars. And now he was being told to stand against an ancient enemy. Yet he also remembered the trials. He had faced monsters, lies, and impossible choices, and he had not given in. He lifted his head. If they threaten Earth, if they threaten your people, then we must stand together. I may not have the strength of your warriors, but humans have something else. We fight with everything we are. We adapt, we endure, and we never stop. The Queen studied him for a long time. Slowly, a smile touched her lips. Then perhaps it is time the galaxy learns the human way. The gathering of allies days later, Elias found himself standing at a great table of stars. It was a map, projected in shimmering light. The Vorakai ships were marked like burning red sparks at the edge of the galaxy. Around the table stood generals, lords, and commanders from many worlds. Some sneered at Elias, others studied him curiously. A few gave him small nods of respect. Queen Serenia stood at his side, her golden eyes watching him closely. She said nothing, letting him speak. Elias cleared his throat. The Vorakai are stronger than any single world. If we fight them alone, each of us will fall. But together, we have a chance. Not by copying their strength, but by using what they do not expect. One commander scoffed. And what would a human teach us? Your kind has barely left your own planet. Elias nodded calmly. That is true. But perhaps because we are young, we see things differently. On Earth, history taught us this. When stronger enemies came, we did not fight them by strength alone. We used wit, courage, and unity. He pointed at the map. The Vorakai are rigid. They attack with power, but their patterns are predictable. If we spread them thin, force them into small battles, and strike where they do not expect, we can weaken them before they reach our worlds. Murmurs spread among the council. Some dismissed him. Others began to think. Lord Varroc's voice boomed. Words, nothing more. We need warriors, not dreamers. Elias turned to him. His voice was steady. With respect, Lord Varroc, warriors alone will not win this. If they could, the Vorakai would never have vanished. But strategy can turn the tide. If you doubt me, then stand aside. If you wish to protect your people, then fight with me. The hall grew quiet. Varroc glared at him, but the Queen raised her hand. Enough. We will see if the human's way has truth. Prepare the fleets. We march to meet the Vorakai. The battle approaches. The days that followed were filled with preparation. Elias spent hours speaking with commanders, learning about their ships, their weapons, their tactics. He asked questions no one else thought to ask. Where were the weak points in their own fleets? How could they use the stars themselves? The gravity of planets, the shadows of nebulae. Some commanders mocked him at first, but soon they began to listen. His ideas were strange, untested, but they carried a spark of possibility. The Queen watched silently, sometimes with amusement, sometimes with deep thought. She seemed to see in Elias something that reminded her of long-lost courage. At night, Elias sat alone, staring at the star maps. Fear gnawed at him, but he held on to one thought. I cannot let Earth be forgotten. I cannot let humans be seen as weak. The Vorakai strike. The day came when the sky burned. Scouts reported Vorakai warships crossing into Allied space. They were dark, jagged vessels shaped like blades, each larger than a city. Their weapons could tear apart fleets. The Allied armada gathered near the border, a vast fleet of ships from many worlds. Sleek vessels with wings of light, massive carriers with glowing shields, and smaller craft darting like insects. Elias stood on the bridge of the Queen's flagship, his hands gripping the edge of the command table. The crew worked quickly, their alien voices sharp with tension. Queen Serenia stood beside him, calm but alert. The enemy comes, she said softly. Elias nodded. Then we show them what humans can do. The Vorakai fleet entered the system, their red lights burning like fire. The Allied commanders prepared to charge head-on. But Elias raised his hand. Wait, let them think we are afraid. Pull the front lines back. Lure them into the nebula. Some commanders shouted in protest, but the Queen's voice cut through. Do as he says. The fleets shifted. The Vorakai chased, believing the Allies weak. Their massive ships thundered into the nebula cloud. Inside, visibility dropped. Energy signals twisted. The Vorakai grew disoriented. That was when Elias gave the order. Strike from the sides, now. From the shadows of the nebula, smaller Allied ships darted out, hitting the Vorakai from every angle. Their massive size worked against them. They could not turn quickly, could not adapt. Explosions lit the nebula like stars being born. The Vorakai roared, but they were forced back. For the first time in centuries, they met resistance they had not expected. A turning point. When the first battle ended, the Allies had won. Not by crushing the Vorakai, but by outsmarting them. On the bridge, cheers filled the air. Elias stood breathless, his chest tight with both fear and relief. He had gambled everything, and it worked. Queen Serenia turned to him. Her golden eyes shone brighter than ever. "You see, Captain? This is why I accepted your words. You bring something my people have forgotten, the courage to see the impossible and still walk forward." Elias met her gaze. For the first time, he felt not just respect from her, but something warmer, deeper. But his heart also knew the war was not over. The Vorakai would return, stronger, angrier, and the next battle would decide everything. The aftermath of the first battle against the Vorakai left the Allied fleets battered but alive. Smoke rose from damaged ships and alarms rang across the command bridges. Yet among the chaos, a new sense of hope had spread. Captain Elias stood on the deck of the Queen's flagship looking at the stars. The red sparks of the Vorakai retreating vessels glimmered like embers in the distance. He could feel the exhaustion in his bones, but also the quiet thrill of success. For the first time, humans, and he himself, had proven their worth among the stars. Queen Serenia approached him, her steps soft against the metal floor. Her golden eyes reflected the dying light of the nebula behind them. "You have done well, Captain," she said quietly. "Not because you fought the strongest with force, but because you showed courage, patience, and thought." Elias bowed his head. "I could not have done it without the support of your people and the Alliance. Humanity alone is not strong enough for the stars, but together we can endure almost anything," the Queen smiled. "And that is why I accepted your words," she said, almost in a whisper. Elias blinked. For a moment he thought he had imagined it. "My words, Your Majesty. The ones spoken in the council," she replied, her voice gentle. "The ones that were, in your tongue, only meant to honor. In my tongue they were more, and yet you still stood by them, even when the galaxy tested you. That is why they matter now." Elias felt his chest tighten. He had not expected the Queen to see the meaning behind his words, not truly. And now, standing among alien stars, he felt something that had nothing to do with victory in battle. It was respect. Deep, mutual, unspoken, and powerful. The final strategy. Though the first battle had been won, the Vorakai were not defeated. Their numbers were great and their anger deep. Scouts reported that they were gathering in force near the outer rim, planning an attack on multiple Allied worlds at once. The Allied commanders convened again, but this time, Elias led the discussion. His confidence had grown. He had seen what humans could do, not by overpowering, but by understanding, adapting, and uniting. The Vorakai are predictable in their power, but not in their patience, Elias began, tracing the paths of the enemy on the star map. They will strike where we are weakest. But humans have a different approach. We think creatively, we adapt, and we use what others overlook. If we position ourselves to defend the worlds and bait them into vulnerable positions, we can break their formations before they reach the planets. Several alien commanders frowned. "That is risky," said one, wings fluttering nervously. "If we fail, countless lives will be lost." Elias nodded. "I know. But the alternative, meeting them head-on, is certain defeat. The human way is to find solutions where none seem possible. We survive by thinking, not just by fighting." Queen Serenia's golden eyes glimmered. She turned to the assembly. "Then we will follow his plan. The human has shown courage in trials. Let us see if his way can save many." The climactic battle days later, the Allied fleets took positions across the border systems. The Vorakai advanced, enormous and terrifying, their red lights cutting through the void. Elias's strategy was simple yet cunning. The Allied forces feigned weakness, leaving certain sectors seemingly undefended. The Vorakai, confident in their strength, charged without caution. Then the Allies struck from hidden positions, smaller fleets darting through asteroid fields, massive ships firing from unexpected angles, and coordinated energy strikes that cut off the Vorakai's flanks. Elias's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold. The Vorakai roared across the stars, but every move they made played into the plan. Their immense size, once terrifying, now became their weakness. They could not turn quickly, could not adapt to the unpredictable attacks, and were forced to retreat again and again. The battle continued for hours, but the tide had changed. The Allied forces moved as one, guided by strategy, communication, and the human insight Elias had brought. When the final Vorakai vessel fell, silence spread across the galaxy. The Allied fleets had survived, and more than survived, they had won. Recognition of humanity. After the battle, the Council gathered once more. This time there was no doubt in anyone's mind. Humanity had proven itself, not by sheer power, but by courage, intelligence, and heart. Queen Serenia stood at the center, her golden eyes sweeping the assembly. "Let it be known," she said, "that the human species, small in size but vast in spirit, has shown courage, creativity, and endurance beyond expectation. They have faced the trials of union, and they have stood against an ancient enemy. From this day, humanity shall have a place among the stars, honored and respected by all." The council erupted into applause. Some lords bowed, some nodded, and even Lord Varrock's 4 arms clenched with reluctant respect. Elias felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Humanity had not only survived, they had earned a place in the galaxy. And he, a simple envoy, had been the bridge. The Queen's question later. After the council dispersed, Queen Serenia asked Elias to join her privately. The palace was quiet, the stars outside glowing softly. She looked at him, her golden eyes calm and warm. "Captain Elias, there is one matter that remains. The words you spoke in the council, your proposal, were they truly meant?" Elias swallowed, feeling the memory of that moment from so long ago. He remembered the fear, the hesitation, the accidental meaning. He thought of how far he had come, how humans had risen, how courage and heart had turned misunderstanding into respect. He took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, when I spoke those words, I only meant to honor and show loyalty, but now, I understand their weight, and I would not be afraid to mean them if it were true, now or in the future." The Queen's golden eyes softened further. She smiled, a smile that spoke of respect, admiration, and perhaps even something more. Then perhaps the proposal was never a mistake. Perhaps it was the beginning of something greater, an alliance of worlds and maybe of hearts as well. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. The words were not just about him, they were about humanity, about trust, and about standing together when the galaxy had expected weakness. A new beginning in the days that followed. Humanity's role in the galaxy changed forever. Earth was no longer seen as a small, fragile planet. Humans were recognized as brave, clever, and full of heart. They were invited into councils, alliances, and explorations that had been unthinkable before. Elias continued to serve as a representative, but now with a new confidence. He walked among alien rulers not as a visitor, but as an equal. Queen Serenia remained a constant presence. Her golden eyes watched him with quiet approval, her smile a reminder that courage and honesty could change the fate of a species. Elias often thought back to the day he had spoken the words, thinking they were simple words of loyalty. They had changed everything. He realized that humans were small in size, yes, but their spirit, their courage, and their hearts made them giants among the stars. And in the quiet moments, when the stars seemed endless and the galaxy calm, he thought of the Queen's smile and whispered quietly just for himself. Perhaps it was always meant to be. The stars outside seemed to twinkle in agreement. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of humanity. Not through domination, not through fear, but through the human way, courage, creativity, and an unwavering heart. And Captain Elias, once a simple envoy, had proven that even a single human could change the course of worlds.